What's going on, boys? I'm Patty, and in today's video, we're discussing dad energy. Now, this could also be quantified as masculine energy. These are characteristics that dads and masculine men exhibit. Um, I'm just bringing these things up because I've literally watched people who didn't have kids and they were childish, immature, and kind of selfish. They had a child, and then seemingly out of nowhere, months later, they have various portions and characteristics of this dad energy. Um, and it's just something I've observed. I don't have kids, so I just like I said, it's just something I've observed out in the world and in nature, and however you want to quantify it. So without further ado, let's get into the list. The first thing I've noticed when it comes to dad energy or masculine men in general, one of the things that is like absolutely key is they do what they say they're going to do. Um, they don't ever say they're going to do something and then not do it. That is actually a sign of immaturity and not masculine energy. If you say you're going to do something, do it. And if you don't know if you're going to do something, don't say that you're going to do it. So that's kind of like, I mean, a lot of people know this. A lot of these things on this list are, kind of common sense, but some people like to hear things packaged and spelled out. And that's what this video is meant to do. The next thing on the list I think is absolutely huge and important. Don't jump up here, Bubby. Is So I'm gonna probably get a lot of flack for this if this video happens to pop off, which I highly doubt, but because it's one of my first few videos, I don't know why this video will pop up, but this second one's probably gonna ruffle some feathers. But I believe this wholeheartedly as I have observed it. And that's to never sob in front of anyone but God. So if you don't believe in God, that's fine, whatever. I'm not. This isn't like a religious debate or topic or video, whatever, right? But do not sob in front of anyone. It's okay to cry. When I say cry, like you get hit in the forehead or you get hit in this area along the tear ducts, you eat some peppers, someone makes you laugh like just obnoxiously hard, and you have the physical tear. That's kind of not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sobbing, like, how you would do if your parent died, or if, you lost someone close to you, or you're going through a really rough time, or you're going through depression or whatever. The sobbing, the just like, especially if you're like losing your breath and like snot's coming out of your face, like whatever, right? You're sobbing. If you're sobbing, this is something you want to do solo, totally alone, in the car, no one's around, you're in a cornfield. I'm just kidding. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, definitely not in front of your wife and definitely not in front of your children. And just like, this is something that is just like, when you observe a man that has never sobbed in front of you before, you're just like, this guy is so strong. And some people, like, so your wife and your kids, they need you to be that pillar because they can sob, and they sob in your arms, and you sob in God's arms, or solo, whichever, whatever you fancy there. Um, but you have to be a pillar for them to gravitate towards when they're in trouble and when they're in need. No woman wants to be sobbing, going, "Oh, what are we gonna do?" And then have a man alongside her doing the exact same thing. So I guess if a lot of that sounded shallow, I'll just in that portion by saying you need to be a pillar. And then the third thing I've noticed about masculine men, or again, dad energy, I'm going to stop doing the air quotes and just say dad energy because it's kind of a good term, and it is a term that a lot of people use, um, is to stop complaining. So this is something that immature people do, and people who have no game plan, who can exact nothing out. They don't have a vision. They don't have a path. They don't have uh, they don't have any sort of structure, and they don't have a, all right, shit, that happened to me. Let's get back at it. Let's figure this out. Like, And I understand that's really hard to do. I work on that. I got to work on that. There are times where I complain. It's like a human nature, but do not complain. And this is also like another one where you just don't want to be in front of people. You can complain in your head. Like there's times where I'm like, why, God? There's times where I'm just like in traffic and I'm losing my shit. Like just to, just to be real, I understand you're human, but do not complain to your significant other that is a female or children. Do not let them hear you complain. Do not let other people in general hear you complain. That is not a masculine trait. That is not dad energy. And if someone sees that in you, or you're like with a potential partner that you could that you want to grow a relationship with, you cannot let them hear you complain, because it goes along with the point number two of you need to be that pillar. And so um that's why I would say complaining is not good. You're exhibiting non-masculine energy. And for the fourth point, or fourth trait that I see masculine and dad people with dad energy have, is they are sure of themselves. They walk with an uprightness, like they're like a lion, regardless of what they're faced with. To be as bold as a lion. You hear that statement, or the lion does not concern himself with this magic, this meme, and this like masculine energy and psychology. I think it comes from a few things. This is what I've noticed: people who are sure of themselves have these things in common. They have the ability to defend themselves and their family, usually physically. So they've had some sort of boxing, some sort of kickboxing, maybe jujitsu, maybe they are trained with the weapon. They're an absolute expert marksman. Um, they just have the ability to defend themselves, defend their family. The second point on being sure of themselves is that they have a really strong work ethic. These are people who work really hard at their job, in the gym, regardless of what they're doing. They work very hard. They have a very strong work ethic. And then another thing is they take pride in who they are as a person. So like they're unapologetic a lot of times. And another thing too, the way they're sure of themselves, it's kind of like point one and this is point four, by the way, being sure of yourself. They kind of bounce off of one another because they always do what they say they're going to do. They are sure of themselves. They keep promises to themselves, which I'm kind of ruining another video in the future, but it's all right. It's okay. I'll space them out, and hopefully you guys will forget about this one. No. um, they do what they say they're going to do, and then because of that, they're sure of themselves. And I'd say they the fifth trait, moving on from that one, the fifth trait is they master being calm in the storm, and they control their impulses and emotions. One thing that's a sign of immaturity, and that is not masculine energy, is the inability to control your emotions, including anger. So if you can't be the calm in the storm, how are you supposed to be the pillar that that your family latches onto when they lose their shit? You can't be a pillar if you're being blown away by your anger and your other emotions, your fear, your anxiety, whatever it is. So in those instances where you're in traffic or you're dealing with something frustrating, you have to show your family and show your children, especially, that you can be calm in the storm, that you don't have to bite down on everything that life throws your way, because sometimes life's going to bait you with some bullshit, and you just got to go. And that's it. Like you just exhale, and then that's it. And your kids and your wife will observe that, and they will be like, "Wow, what a pillar." You can lose your shit in your head, but I would recommend that you work on that too, being calm in your head, because oftentimes how you perceive and think will reflect physically. If I get angry, right? It reflects my face. But if I'm calm on the inside and I'm calm in my head, I'm going to be calm presented to the outside. So I wouldn't recommend wearing a mask, but if you absolutely have to, if you start to lose your shit, wear that mask. You know, there was a guy that he was a Medal of Honor recipient, right? And I'm sure you guys know this meme. Barack Obama, for whatever reason, he said that this guy was in his post and his team were in a post and they were being pounded, right? And this guy, he started to smirk with his mouth, and then he bit down. He locked in, like just like that. He just like kind of like just clenched his jaw, clenched his, and just thought about discipline. And although that was funny in the moment, he was in the post being pounded, him and his team. That's he locked in and pulled it together, and that's kind of what you got to do. But if stuff's funny, it's okay to laugh. Not if you're in the military, apparently. But if it's something that makes you angry or anxious or a negative emotion that can be fed off of, that's not good, that you don't want other people to feed off of, you need to lock in. So that's what I'm saying. Don't wear a mask. Control your emotions. Be real. Be true to mastering the calm and the storm. But if you can't, lock in and at least wear the mask for your family's sake. Controlling impulses. I mean, this goes without saying. If you're not controlling impulses, like how you're not in prison yet, or how you're not like all sorts of messed up, you're beyond probably being, you know, it's beyond dad energy and masculine energy. Controlling your impulses is, I mean, absolutely huge. And the way you do that is you get rid of anxiety. Anything that causes you to be anxious and uppity, maybe cut back on the caffeine. If your dopamine's ultra spiked, cut out things that spike your dopamine so that you're not constantly up here and you're redlining the dopamine. And when you don't have it, it makes you crazy, right? People who smoke weed all the time, people who watch corn all the time, people who eat sweet treats all the time, they just gorge themselves. Those things spike your dopamine. They can make you they can they can make you ultra anxious and have a crazy amount of anxiety that you wouldn't otherwise have if you're smoking cigarettes or using any sort of stimulant like the Zen packs or whatever. Cut those out or get off of them completely so that you're not stemmed out of your mind, doing caffeine and then you're doing nicotine and it's like you just smoked a bowl of crack and then you wonder why you're in traffic going, oh! You just got to like cut out the stems and get off the bullshit is basically, how I would say controlling your impulses is kind of like a personality trait. So, I mean, if you're late in life and you haven't learned to do this, you haven't, messed up and then learn from it. And you're like, man, I got to control my impulses. I can't, let bullshit make choices for me. I can't react to everything. I can't bite down on everything, you know, then I mean, that is cooked. That is something that you need to do early. If you're a young guy and you're super impulsive, you need to recognize that about yourself and do whatever you can to repel that personality trait as much or curb that personality trait, that just shortcoming of yours. You definitely have to learn to curb that because that will wreck your life. The last thing that I've noticed with dad energy or masculine energy, and I mean it is just like the core element in my opinion, and that is to do what needs to be done. So it kind of goes along with saying with do what you say you're going to do, but it goes beyond that. You do what needs to be done. So uh some bullshit happens and you have to go outside and it's like storming and your family needs you to go outside for something and it's like raining like the opening scene of Godzilla. You're going to get soaked. It's going to fucking suck, but you go out and you get it done. You get whatever you need done. You got to like So in any instance like that where something is difficult and something is hard, and then these things got to bounce off of one another, right? So if you're going to do what needs to be done, you can't do it complaining. You have to master the calm in the storm. So point six bounces off of point three and point five and point two. You don't sob in front of anyone. Don't complain. Master the calm in the storm and do what needs to be done. I'll go ahead and go over all of them real quick in order that I mentioned. It's do what you say you're going to do. Never sob in front of anyone but God. Stop complaining. Be sure of yourself. Master the calm in the storm and do what needs to be done. And if you do these things and these things become a permanent staple in your personality and the way you behave, and this is something I do believe people change incidentally without like purposeful, um, like a trying to do so, without the will to do so, they just incidentally they go from not having a child, they're having a child, they have the child, and in that post having the child, it changes them, and it should change you. Everyone I know that became a dad, they changed. My friends that were absolute jackasses are now working full time jobs. They were party animals, and they were like, "Oh, having a job, being a slave, bro." I actually had one of my friends say that he works a full time job now and takes care of his family. There is a switch that should happen, and I recommend switching early because it's going to give you the best possible partner, best possible woman, because she's gonna see that masculine dad energy, and she's not gonna dip out on that unless she's some whore. And we've already talked about that in the channel. Avoid BPD, borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder. Learn the cues, learn what they are. You got to become a psychologist so that when you go to consult women on dating them, or court them, that you can disqualify the ones that need to, or disqualify the ones that need to be disqualified, and qualify the ones that need to be qualified. You need to recognize the signs, recognize the patterns. Colored hair, nose ring, tattoos above the neck, tattoos on private parts. These things that go along with borderline and antisocial personality disorder, and really save yourself from that. But prepare early, develop these masculine traits and the dad energy early. And like I said, the woman who is qualified that will come into your life will see that energy, and she will want to have your baby. See, the first thing this channel that I would teach to anybody is to get lean. That's obvious. You get the jawline coming in, you get the pecs, you get the shoulders popping, you get the you maybe not, you don't have to have a six pack, right? But you get that, and you just be in the best shape that you could possibly be. Be lean, 10% to 15% body fat, and then develop these traits like a skill. Work on being calm, doing what if you make a promise to yourself, keep it. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Don't sob in front of anyone. Stop complaining. All the things that I listed, you do those early, and the right woman's going to come into your life, and it's going to just be like the smooth transition. So, with that, I know that was a lot, and I know I rambled there. That was a good ramble though, because that was pertaining to what we were talking about. The whole purpose of dad energy is because you're going to be a dad someday, hopefully. So, everything kind of like meshed together there. Sorry about the tangent, but it needed to be said. And with that, I'm out. And until next time, boys, peace.